You are tuned in to On Air with Chris Shanafelt. Welcome back On Air with Chris Shanafelt, and it's a pleasure to welcome back onto the show New York Jets wide receiver and return specialist. He's Vyncint Smith, pride and joy of Limestone College, of course. Vince, really appreciate you taking the time as always, man. How's everything going?
Everything's going great. Appreciate you for having me on today.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. And, before we get things started, man, I got to ask, did you watch the Super Bowl at all? Super Bowl 54, the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, with the 31-20 victory over the San Francisco 49ers. Did you get a chance to watch any of it? What was your take?
Yeah, I did. I watched majority to all of it. And I honestly thought San Fran was going to win the game. I was saying that all week. And then, got to the fourth quarter, and then Chiefs are down by 10 points with like 6 minutes left. And I have one of my coaches, he's a big San Fran fan. And he's like, well, I was like, I don't know. The Chiefs can put up a lot of points in a little bit of time. And, he's like, we're professionals. It's too big of a stage to let it happen. And they put up the points that quick.
As a, offensive player in the NFL, Vince, I mean, is that kind of your dream to be a part of an offense that can put up points, in the fashion that the Chiefs can? I mean, your former team, the Houston Texans, obviously witnessed that very closely, in the first round of the playoffs. They were up 24-0 and seeing the Kansas City Chiefs make a legendary comeback. I mean, for you watching that, I mean, do you kind of put yourself in their shoes somewhat and go, man, that has to be a great feeling?
Yeah, to see like how fluid the offense can be at moments and when they click and you can't stop just watching the ball matriculate downfield or the lack of matriculation and just seeing it get down the field really fast. That's, everybody's dream, I think, as an offensive player, and to see how fast they can put up points. It's like kind of like a calming feeling on a bench knowing you can put up points whenever you need to.
Yeah, watching the Chiefs this season, it kind of felt like, playing a Madden video game and, just the way they're able to put up points and sometimes how easy it could look. And, of course, it was nice to see Andy Reid, after 21 years of being a head coach in the NFL, finally raise up the Lombardi Trophy. Obviously, the future in Kansas City is bright with Mahomes under center. But anyways, moving on, Vincent, this time last year we had you on the show, actually almost a year ago to the day, and you were still a member of the Houston Texans, and as we know, the NFL is, of course, a business first, and unfortunately, you were one of the Texans' final cuts leading up to the regular season. You landed back on the team's practice squad, though, for about the first month of the season, and then you're eventually signed off the practice squad by the New York Jets, where, of course, you're still a member of today. How did you take that news when you first found out that your playing days in Houston were officially over, and that you were going to be starting a new career elsewhere?
That first month was definitely different for me. With it being my second year and that being the first time I was cut, so it was a new experience. But I really at the time I really did like Houston and the city and playing there. I felt like it was a great spot for me. But, so my agents were kind of worried, like, if another team called, I wouldn't take it and leave. But I knew when the right team called or when the right situation popped up, I knew I was going to leave. So getting that call, it was great. I felt, kind of like valued really again by another team, and knowing I was going to be able to get back on the field and just play the sport I love, I was very excited.
To get to the point where you're at, especially the journey that you've gone through, Vincent, coming from a small Division II school, being the first ever Limestone alum to make it to the NFL, you have to have this confidence about yourself. You have to have obviously the skill set to make it to where you're currently at. Were you surprised at all that another team kind of came up calling and snatched you up from the practice squad, or did you kind of know that was going to happen at some point during the season?
Talking to my agents early in the season, we all believed sometime would call and pick me up. If not, the Texans would eventually move me up for an injury or something. So, I stayed confident and pretty positive through the month that it was going to happen sometime. and it actually happened sooner than I thought it would. That was the surprise part.
Were you able to tell that you were in the number one media market in the country? I mean, how did the coverage in New York, New Jersey, compare to the media market that you're used to in Houston?
It's big. It's I'll just say New York is very busy. It's a lot you can get yourself into, and a lot of outlets that kind of put your name out there, both positive and negative.
No doubt about it. Again, we're chatting with New York Jets wide receiver Vyncint Smith here on air. I'm Chris Shanafelt, and Vyncint, the Jets finished the 2019 campaign 7-9. 6 of those 7 total wins, though, came in the team's final 8 games. How did the team have this resurrection, I guess you could kind of say, in the second half of the season? What was going so well for you guys in November and December that maybe wasn't going too well at the start of the season? And obviously you can only speak for, week 5 or 6 and forward, but so you're still kind of there seeing some of the team's struggles early on in the season.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think is just a team gelling. It's a whole new coaching staff. A lot of different players from everywhere, and I think it's just a little bit of learning on the offensive side. More of the offense, and the defense played really great throughout the whole season, especially the second half. I think that was just our team gelling and kind of like finding our identity. So in the second half of the season, we played pretty well and won, the 6 out of 8 games.
And it seemed like you had more of an impact on the offensive side of the ball, not just special teams, in the team's final 4 or 5 games. What was that like, kind of just getting another opportunity to see the field on the offensive side of the football?
It was fun, coming, from Houston to Jets and having to learn a whole new playbook and different plays and different schemes and philosophies, finally putting it on the field in the last month and be able to make plays. It was good. It's definitely a confidence booster, and it kind of propels me into the next season.
Again, we're chatting with New York Jets wide receiver Vyncint Smith on air with Chris Shanafelt. And Vyncint, there's a lot of feelings about head coach Adam Gase, and some are high, some aren't too high. Obviously, the ending to the season, though, probably I wouldn't say saved his job. It was still just year 1 of his time there in New York. But there seems to be a lot of feelings about Adam Gase as somebody that goes to battle with him week in and week out during the season. How would you describe the head coach of the New York Jets?
He's actually pretty personal. If you get to know him pretty well, I think you like him. He's just not a media type person, so I think his perception through the media is always kind of a negative thing. But as a player and an offensive guy, you kind of see where he's thinking, and he takes care of us, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, obviously, I'm here in Chicago. He was at one point an offensive coordinator with the Bears and probably gave Jay Cutler, former quarterback of the Bears, his best year as a professional, at least here in Chicago, which ultimately landed Gase the head coaching gig in Miami, and now there he is coaching you guys in New York. And Vyncint, you've gone from catching passes from Deshaun Watson to now catching passes from Sam Darnold, 2 quarterbacks who both seem to have a really bright future in this league. Obviously, so far, Donald hasn't seen as much success as Watson has, but that could be for a number of different reasons. I know he wasn't healthy for much of the season last year, but do you see any similarities between the 2 quarterbacks? Obviously, these are kind of guys that are in the same tier in terms of potential franchise quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, definitely. I believe both of them are franchise quarterbacks, and they both have a lot of upside, but I think they're 2 total different type players playing for them. And I kind of see, it's also kind of a product of the offense, but seeing how they kind of like go through the reads different, or even for me, I just notice how, they get set in the stance and the way they call the cadence out. I just notice small stuff like that coming from Houston and seeing how Sam does it. And, even from how they throw the ball, how the trajectory of the ball and how it comes out is totally different between the 2 quarterbacks. And they both do it how they do it very well.
So as a receiver, Vyncint, do you have to change up any of your mechanics, maybe hand gestures or the way the ball's coming down into your hands? I mean, the way the ball comes out of the quarterback's hands, does that change your game much at all when the ball's coming your way?
I'll say being with Deshaun, he is a very I think he's very particular about the timing on his route. So, you know, a lot of the times when we come out of our breaks, you know, he'll be like, hey, the ball's coming out right now. So as soon as your head's coming around, the ball's out. So, you know, that ball's going to be on you very quick. Whereas Sam, it's like he's not quite like that. But I'll say the best thing about him, a lot of his balls are very catchable. Like, he throws a very good ball where it seems like, wow, that was really easy to catch. That's the best way I could put it.
Has there been a moment in practice where you've seen a throw from Darnold that kind of confirmed to you that he's the future of the franchise at the quarterback position?
Yeah, and in practice, you know, he kind of just makes everything look kind of easy, you know. But I think it's really the games. You're like, okay, yeah, he's definitely that guy. And to see him in the second half of the season, he's a very calm guy, but he can get fiery, especially when he's playing well.
A few more questions for Vyncint Smith, New York Jets wide receiver here on air. And Vyncint, obviously you go from a wide receiver room with guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller to a wide receiver room with another impressive wide receiver in Robbie Anderson and some other guys as well. I know Quincy Enunwa has kind of been battling the injury bug the last few seasons, but when he's healthy on the field, he's a quality wide receiver. But in terms of Robbie Anderson, I feel like he kind of has that star power potential, and he's reached it at points in his career. What was it like working with him this past season with the Jets?
Oh, it was cool. You know, like you said, going from a team with like players like DeAndre and Will, and you know, Demarius being on both teams.
Mm-hmm.
But going from a team with DeAndre and Will, you know, like I said, just kind of like different philosophies in the offense and how they run routes and kind of like how they think. I think that's the biggest thing I took. And Robbie, he knows exactly what he can do, and he plays very strong for, you know, some guys that say it's that big of a receiver, but he can fly down the field. That's why I see similarities between him and Will, and you know, Robbie stays healthy pretty well.
I remember you made some noise with your 40 time coming out of college at the South Carolina Pro Day. Robbie Anderson, Will Fuller, and Vyncint Smith all line up to race. Who's in first place? Who's in second place? Who's in third?
Oh man, that's a hard makeout. I think it depends on how long the race is, but I think any different day, any three of us could take a win, honestly.
I'm not surprised, Vince. I'm not surprised you gave that answer. Always humble, always classy. Final question for you, man. Really appreciate it. Obviously, we're just at the start of the off season, and we don't really even know what the team is going to look like. I know you guys have a ton of pending free agents. We'll see who's gone. We'll see who's back. Robbie Anderson, one of those guys who's a free agent that may be on the move. We'll see. But obviously, with the Super Bowl just being days days removed from the Super Bowl, you see the Kansas City Chiefs parade going on earlier today. You know, just speak about what you feel needs to happen, what needs to come together for you and the New York Jets to be in that moment, maybe a year from today, maybe celebrating a Super Bowl. I mean, a year ago, not too many people would have believed you if you said that the San Francisco 49ers were going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So obviously anything could happen. A lot of changes, a lot of moves will be made this offseason. What do you think needs to happen in order for the Jets to prepare for the Super Bowl a year from now?
Personally, for me, I just think we all gotta keep our heads in the playbooks and come to the off season and really kind of gel there in the off season and kind of like propel ourselves into the season with a really good off season. That's why I think I know being with the Texans last year, that was kind of like a big thing in the off season, seeing how our offense grew from 2018 to 2019 and coming to the Jets and knowing it's the first year, and you know, I see where things aren't the same or this much of the offense is installed compared to where I've just been. So I think when we have just as much of the offense installed as the Jets, we're going to be very dangerous.
And obviously, if that quarterback in the division, hailing from New England, I won't say his name, but if he decides to call it a career, that'll obviously be a big boost to the three other teams in the AFC East. Vyncint, really appreciate your time tonight, man. Always a pleasure chatting with you. And again, congrats on all the success, man. Always love seeing you making plays on TV. You know, kind of going back to your Limestone days. and then seeing where you're at today. It's awesome. It's great to see, and really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to me.